Hi Kenny, welcome to my channel. Kenny here won first place with his Drytron deck this weekend. He went undefeated with his Shockmaster combo. His deck is Drytron. Kenny, the floor is yours. Let us know your shoutouts, what you want the viewers to know.
So shout out to Tombox or MSCTV, since he gave me free advertising earlier last year. And this was the same deck, or not the exact same profile, but exact same deck, Drytrons, that I use in Nationals. So I'm glad to be on your channel for the first time.
I'm glad to have you here as well. Without further ado, let's get into the deck profile.
Okay, so starting with our Pringle monsters. That's what I call our orange border monsters, effect monsters. So of course it's going to be our 3 alphas and our 3 zetas. Searches ritual monsters, so do a ritual spell. And our conditional names, Delta and Gamma. So, we're going to have 2 Delta and 1 Gamma. So why I decided to cut back on the Gamma is because Gamma is a bonus effect, already requires you to have another name in circulation. So you won't, so for the 1 name hands where you have only access to Gamma and not the other 3 plus the Ben 10, that's not gonna be a good case, because you want to save Gamma's bonus effect for extenders to make a mu beta. But our other three names, they are better for the one name hands, since their bonus effects doesn't require us to have another name already. And for our light fairies of the deck, searchable via Ben 10, are sort of our 2 normal summons, Diviner and Yugioh. So our Diviner, our level 2 tuner, usually she becomes a level 6 when you send a Arclight or a Ents, and that's a Manju effect or a pop with Ents. And sometimes we can use Diviner to go into Black Rose, being a level 6 tuner, and a lot of people don't see that coming. And Yugioh, our other normal summon. So Yugioh is another way to trigger Ben 10 with its tribute summon. So a lot of people, they know that Ben 10 is not a hard once per turn. So even though Ben 10 is not limited by its own effect, it's limited by the number of tribute outlets we have in our decks. So our 1, 2, 3, 4 names, and also our Yugioh and our Dawn of the Herald that we'll get into later. So those are our 6 tribute outlets that can trigger Ben 10. So our Ben 10, so in effect, is effectively up to 6 times per turn, even though it does now limit itself. And our searchable hand traps, that being Orange Light and Lancia. So Orange Light, of course, it is our searchable side frame gear Gamma, being able to negate a monster effect. And also it's another tuner if somehow we want to hard make Arclight and also combine with an Exceeds to make an Ents as a way to out a skill drain or another Floodgate, for example. And that's another good feature of Orange Light. And Lancia, of course, another very good hand trap against the Kashtira matchup or against other decks that really need their cards to be banished. And our last Pringle of the deck is our Kurikata. So this is not a light fairy, so it's not searchable off Ben 10, but it is searchable in this deck, as we'll get to one of my other tech cards. And that being its level 1, so it's a fairy, it's repurposable for Orange Light or our Perfection, and its own effect, it's very good as well, being a Lava Golem-like summoning condition where you get rid of your opponent's monsters, and something like Kashtira, where the Rice Heart, it's very easy, since it's mandatory, it's very easy to set that off and being able to summon Kurikata easily in that matchup. So that's why we main deck Kurikata. And that rounds up our Pringles for the deck. So let's get into our blue cards, our blue main deck monsters. So we have our 1 Perfection, and also our 1, and not 1, not 2, but our 3 Ben 10s. So Ben 10 is our baby Ceratosaurus, or our Atlantean Dragoons of the deck, where it doesn't do anything by itself, but if you have the correct tribute outlets to get it started, it has a very high ceiling. And our Edatin, which is mainly used for its on-summon effect, where it can recover a ritual spell. But sometimes when it's sometimes you also want its tribute effect to pump up our other ritual monsters, so they could get over something that's unaffected. And or just to make mainly to make our Perfection a lot more tankier by increasing its defense. And our last ritual monster, or I should say our last light fairy, is Natasha. So Natasha, it's a snatch steal that's triggered from the graveyard, and it's limited by its effect. It's not limited by itself in a turn. It's limited by the number of other Cyber Angels, that's being up to 4. And Herald, the Perfection, I should say, it's also does not limit by itself. Its effect is up to the number of fairies in your hand. So a lot of these aren't hard ones per turns by their own effects. But they are limited by other factors in your deck. So our 2 boss ritual monsters. So 1 being our Draconids. So this is a very good OTK enabler. It can attack all special summon monsters, and also a very good disruption effect as well. It's good. Its targeting sent to the graveyard, so it's very good against Kashtira, against their birth and against their pressured planet. And so and also its continuous effect, where it can't be targeted by monster effects, comes in handy as well. So going second with this can put up a good fight against Kashtira, since they can't. A lot of their effects, like Big Eye, or Rice Heart, or Draco Sack, those all targets. So their only in-house out would be if they use a pressure planet and combine with their Shangri-La. So this can very good with putting up a fight in those scenarios. And our main monsters, that's a reason why I decided to pick this deck up again, is our Magician of Black Chaos Max. So Chaos Max, he is a shock master with monster effects. So the main combo with Chaos Max is you can use another Link monster we'll get into that can bring this out on your opponent's turn, and so that will shock master lock them out of monster effects for the whole turn. Or you could use it on your turn if you happen to hard open with this, or way to this, and a Medionis and 2 other names, or Draconids that can start off your plays with this guy. So that will shut down any hand traps, which is very good. So any Bestials or Ash, if they don't see this coming, or even Droll, if somehow you get to summoning him before your first search of your turn. So very key star of the deck. So that's all out of our monster cards of our main deck. So getting to our spells. So starting off, our spells are going to be our searchers for our names. So 2 Nova, 2 Emergency, and 2 Where Art Thou. So I like this ratio with 2 Nova, and our 2 other Novas are our 2 copies of Fafnir. So these are. And something more conditional is Foolish, which is a way to get to a tributing Drytron. So not a Drytron to be tributed, but early game where we need tributing Drytrons, this gets us there. So I like this ratio because a playset of any of these, just a limit of course, but a playset of either of the Novas or the Emergencies. So those, it cuts down on the scenarios where I see too many of them, because these are hard ones per turns, so they have diminishing returns in a sense if I draw into too many of them. And Where Art Thou? This is one of my favorite techs, because this does require me to already have a level 1 monster, but this can search any level 1 monster. So that also includes Kurikata. So this is a way to our Kurikata. And so you can look at it as our Theosis of the deck. Granted, it's not searchable, but it can search something outside of our engine. That's a powerful out to a Cashier board. And so our other ways to Benten are our Prep of Rites. Very good bonus effect where if you have a ritual card, you could get that back for free. And our other names, effectively, our Set Rotation. And our other field spell we use for that is our Ritual Sanctuary. So Set Rotation, I like Set Rotation because not only can it get to either our Fafnir or our Sanctuary, so choosing whatever you're missing in your hand, but Set Rotation also puts a card on your opponent's side of the field, so that's a counter to impermanence or evenly matched by giving them a card. So it's also an anti-hand trap measure. So our quote-unquote bricks of the deck are our 3 ritual spells. So that being our 2 copies of Medionis and Dawn of the Herald. So 2 Medionis because you really want to make sure you have at least 1 in your deck to work with. If in case one of them gets banished from your deck with Rice Heart or Mind Hacker, etc. And Dawn, we just need 1 Dawn for our Herald play, and that's all for our ritual spells. And for our other powerful one is our Instant Fusion. So I choose Instant Fusion to go into Millenniumize instead of Call by the Grave, because going second in Instant Fusion will trigger a Rice Heart's effect automatically. So bring out Millenniumize, and since going second, you probably don't have you'll probably have an empty graveyard. So even if they have Birth, they won't be able to chain block Millenniumize's effect. So this is a instant out to a Rice Heart. And so we are also main decking one copy of Eclipse as another out to a Rice Heart, and also a countermeasure to targeting negation, such as Veiler or Imperm, if we happen to draw this and we really need one of our monster effects like Choju or Diviner's effect to go through. And good thing about booking our own cards since we could still use them for tribute summoning or ritual summoning, since they don't have to be face up. And it's also a good reset to our attack points on our Drytron names. And so a lot of uses for this card, but we only main deck this one. And our Ritual Sanctuary, I should say, can repurpose all of our spells if we draw into too many of them, to turn them into Bentens or ritual spells if we need it. And our last spell of the deck is our 1 Triple Tactics Talent. So any more than 1, you're probably not going to resolve it in a game that you're winning, unless for those really grindy games. So we only need 1. I did try it out with 2, but 1 works best. I'd rather not see the second copy ever. And if I don't see it, I'll just have some other good spells to draw. So that's our Power 1-ofs. So that's our main deck. And our X deck. Okay, so usually people, after the main deck, they do the extra deck first. You could swap that around. Okay, so our extra deck. is, so of course, our instant fusion target is our Millennium Eyes Restrict, and our other fusion is Ints. Mostly we send this off Diviner, or sometimes we can hard make this if we want to be creative, such as one of my matchups, Sword Souls, took control of their Synchro, and I was under a D barrier, so I just used my Mu Beta and their Synchro to go into this, and then link this off into Appaloosa to get rid of their Monk. So they were not expecting a hard summon Ints. And it's also a way to out skill drain as well. And our Xyz of the deck, of course, are 2 Mu Betas. So level 2s, they have Sprint, level 3s, they have Cherubini. So level 1s, the closest thing to sending a level 1, an extra deck monster, is Mu Beta, but it's not a generic level 1, so at least it's something Drytron has. It's closest thing to a level 1 Cherubini or a Sprite Sprint. And it also has a continuous effect where it allows you to use our materials under him for our ritual summons. And our rank 6 level chain of the deck is our Beatrice. So Beatrice being the only legal version of Lol Chain, rest in peace Lol Chain and Curious. So yes, this makes our deck very powerful since we have easy access to Beatrice. So Lol Chain and Curious are banned for a reason, but this one is not. And our Zeus enabler is Fucho. So Fucho is unaffected by everything, or you could use Fucho to turtle up if you're under a D-shifter and you need to turtle up with something. So Fucho is your best bet. Or if you get drolled, and you could default to a Fucho as well to buy yourself another turn. So our extra material for Zeus is our Downerd and our Zeus himself. And for Synchros, our other divine targets, our Herald of the Arclights. So this is when it's into graveyard, it gives you a Manju effect, or sometimes if you're under skill drain and want to be creative, you could hard make this with Diviner and 2 other names. And so this will still, its negate will still work under skill drain, but its continuous effect will be negated. And if you have a Ritual Sanctuary, you could potentially recycle it and keep on getting searches off of this. So hard making this, it's very good in those scenarios. And our other Synchro is our Black Rose. We make this with level 6 Diviner and a level 1 name. And a lot of people don't see this coming. Usually they only see a Xyz coming to prevent the Zeus. So they get rid of 1 name, but if they won't think much, well, they will think less of a Diviner, level 6 Diviner plus a name. So I catch a lot of people off guard with this. And our Link Rebo to turn any of our on-field Drytron names into the tributing position by putting them in a graveyard off our Nova. And our Phoenix for back removal, and a draw effect if it's co-linked with Link Rebo. And Dynamundo, our other star of the deck, by getting out our Chaos Max on our opponent's turn. And its Shuffleback effect is also very good. Not only getting spot removal for our opponent's monsters, but also recycling some of our Benten. So we have more search targets for Benten and Alpha. And our Mirage Lights for our other Link 2. So Mirage Lights, it's very weak attack for a Link 2 monster, but it seems it's almost designed to be ran over for a recovery effect. So if this is on the field, not only is it a spell trap negating cards and effects, it's also a recovery tool if your opponent isn't careful about getting rid of this. And our Link 4 of the deck is our Appaloosa, which is, of course, our monster negates. If we want to do something for our bodies that we have a lot. And we are not playing Boros Sword or Access Code because our in-house boss monster or our Natasha main deck So it usually gives us enough damage on board that we don't need those two link 4s. So those two, for my testing, are more so win more, not very necessary for win conditions. And our side deck, so one change of heart for the Rice Heart, that kind of fits. Change of heart, Rice Heart. And our one HFD for our back row decks. And something not seeing too much play this format is our droplets, mostly due to a Rice Heart. And then our other part of our, 2 more copies of book if we know we're going second, most likely. And another copy of Kurikara. So for the games we know we're probably going second. And Droll. 2 copies of Droll and 2 copies of DD Crow for mostly for the mirror matches, but Crows, since this is a where art thou enabler or where thou target, you could use the Crow fits that criteria, being a level 1. So these 4 is our side for the mirror match, or Crow is good for the branded as our only way to stop the gimmick puppet cheese. And 1 Madura, since mostly for our tier matchup, the only way to beat the other opponent's Maduras or the Keldos is using our own Madura, where that's sending it with Foolish or Diviner to force out their Maduras or Keldos, excuse me. And our Silver Bullet to Dark decks is Consecrated Light. So normal summoning this against certain matchups, Dark decks, it is just as powerful, or I should say even more powerful than normal summoning Vanity's Ruler, since it does not require tributes. And starting this off early, it's a Silver Bullet to our Bestial problem. So this is very weak though. So you either have to make the Link summon the Link Kuriboh first, so it has battle protection from 1 monster, 1 non-dark monster, or you probably need to go for your Draconid's line, so you could have quick effect spot removal to protect this. And round off our side deck is our 2 copies of Evenly Matched. So again, mostly for Kashtira or those back row decks. So that's our side deck. All right, so one of the combos here for our starting Shockmaster combo is, so way to our ritual spell, whether that's our itself or Fafnir, and a way to Chaos Max, whether that's himself or Foolish or Alpha, and enough attack points, whether that's Draconids himself or 2 of our names. So ideally, if you have Alpha and Zeta, and Chaos Max and something to start off your combo, start off your combo, your engine. So just these 4 or these 3 gives you an early Shockmaster lock for monster effects. So hard opening with these 3, so any ways of getting to these 3, it affords you a way to deal with the hand traps early. So if you could get to a Chaos Max, hard summon it without search effects, so that will get around Droll, and or if your opponent does not see this combo coming, and it'll let you resolve your Foolish by getting to this. That's another way to get to this early lock. And this will 100% get over or play around the Bestials if you summon him by himself and tribute, because he tributes for cost. So at that point, you won't have any monsters on board, and the Bestials, they won't get their quick effects. So that's the main feature, or the main way of the main feature of this deck for this format It's rather easy to get to this very insane early lock to make sure your plays go smoothly. And also, since you hard ritual summoned Chaos Max, it's all set up for your Dynamundo plays of locking your opponent on their turn. So that's the main combo of the deck.